while others call it eja, igbo, broom, ewe.
It's marijuana. We call it igbo for Yoruba land.
You call it sensimilla, you can call it marijuana.
This one they will call smoke or eja.
This confirmed taba.
It's very easy to get. It's cultivated here. That's why we no longer call it Indian hemp. We call it cannabis sativa.
In Nigeria, its production and use is criminalized by local laws, yet it is one of the illicit drugs produced domestically. The reason it is secretly sold and used. Some wrap and conceal it in small pieces of paper to smoke.
Marijuana, Igbo, cannabis, or skunk, they're giving it so many names. It's actually illegal in Nigeria. The first thing to say is to let Nigerians know that if you do smoke any of these substances, you're actually engaging yourself in an illegal act. There are laws in the land that specified clearly, the penalty for smoking, which is about 25 years, the penalty for growing, which could be as high as even life imprisonment.
The fact that you still have the prevalence of marijuana, the availability, the accessibility of this mind-altering herb everywhere, despite the fact that government is talking about, arresting those who either grew them or use them, is indicative of a failure itself. It means something is wrong somewhere.
Government cannot be everywhere. It is we that can help ourselves. They are doing their best.
The side effects are numerous. They include addiction, decreased mental ability, behavioral problems, chronic coughing, red eye, dry mouth, and exposure to respiratory problems. What are the implications of these hazards on the future of the Nigerian youth?
As long as you are taking it over a period of time, you become chronically mentally unstable. That chronic psychosis now comes in, what you call schizophrenia. Then you now become a liability, both to yourself and to the society. Liability in what way? Of course, by the time you become easily aggressive. We see that in our youth nowadays. By the time you become aggressive, of course you might have to harm one or two people. And of course, because you are taking this thing, you have to have money. If you don't see money, because even you see that the people are taking it are the youth who probably has no job, then pilfering starts, stealing starts, and all sorts of social vices.
A smoker, I will feel fine, work fine. But some people smoker, you feel ugly, you cannot walk, you go down.
Despite the known side effects, why is the abuse still on the increase among youths?
They believe that the thing really doesn't harm them. They take it, they think they are much better than what they are before, which is to the contrary.
When I take it, I feel good, I feel all right, because when I take it, even though I'm not before, when I take it, I will just calm myself down.
They make me think well. Nobody say they think go do bad thing or the thing we no good, but they make me walk well.
When they take it, of course, they are euphoric, they become euphoric, but it might give them anxiety and all those things. Because they give them they are euphoric, they will want to take more. And at the end of the day, they become addicted to it.
Statistics have shown that Nigeria is ranked as one of the highest consumer of marijuana, in spite of the stringent laws put in place against offenders.
It is very, very common in this country. And unless the mechanisms are put in place to check all of these loopholes, will still be left with that feeling of frustration.
We advise them not to be taking this thing, and at the end of the day, they will see that they will become more useful than when they were taking it.
Be that as it may, all hands must be on deck to checkmate this abuse and its addiction. A stitch in time.
Catfish, the act of growing a diverse group of red-fin fish, is popular in Nigeria. The production of the fish for commercial purpose is a major practice by farmers, as it accounts for over 80% of the country's aquaculture output, with a booming domestic market, as well as a strong export sales of smoked fish. In catfish production, feed constitutes the most important cost, as Nigeria still imports feed with only a few producing locally.
Diesel, very expensive. NEPA, when they will bring their NEPA bill, per month they are bringing 70,000. Raw materials is no-go area. Where are we going to get the money?
Its production in recent time is becoming difficult for some small-scale farmers due to the hike in the cost of feed as a result of scarcity of raw materials and depreciation of naira against the dollar, making it difficult for farmers to cope.
Feeds is nothing to write home about, so expensive. Everything has gone so high that the business is becoming so tiresome. But then, as many of us that had the vision, the love of it is there, we will not go back. After having spent so much on a cycle, at the end of the day, you want to sell. For instance, somebody will come and say they want to buy a kilo for 800 naira, 850 naira. This is something you have spent so much on. If you sell it for that rate, you are definitely not going to come back into the business if care is not taken.
The feed now is being imported, and the exchange rate is affecting the importation of the products. The cost of fish has increased. Before now, we could buy this one for 500, but now it's 1,012 for each. So it's apparently very high.
It should be noted that some production plants and fish processing plants are practically shutting down due to scarcity of raw materials. This mill, which employs over 30 young Nigerians, is empty when AIT crew visited, as no worker was seen.
There's no two ways about it. They are closing. So the old people that are surviving now, people that are getting other funds from other businesses to augment what they are doing. And it's because of the passion. That's why some people are still afloat. But I want to assure you, it's not as if I'm giving any negative prophecy, but if these things persist, a lot other farmers will go down.
For this catfish seller, most Nigerians, instead of patronizing locally produced catfish, many prefer to buy other imported fish at exorbitant prices.
In fact, catfish is very, very less than Titus. With it, we don't even see people buying it. They say they don't want catfish because it is our product here. We need to patronize our Nigeria. Whatever you do here, let's patronize it. From there, you'll be able to grow up.
Shower fish and Titus fish can be brought to us here to be buying frozen. We don't know their source. We don't know.
Year-old Hussein Abdurrahman comes to this butcher shop every day to buy 8 to 10.
Hello and welcome to Kakaaki, the African Voice on Africa Independent Television, AIT. I am Adora Sydney Jackson. Sincerely welcome you to this morning's program, and a little bit of apologies for standing behind shadow. But what appeared to be a lull in the xenophobic attacks by groups of South Africans and other Africans resident in the country ended with as many as 5 Mozambicans reported killed after a fresh outbreak of violence over the weekend. Now, according to the Mozambique government, as many as 800 Mozambicans were affected by the xenophobic violence that broke out in the coastal city of Mosel Bay on Friday. Now, this comes as efforts are ongoing to douse the tension caused by similar attacks on other African nationals, of which Nigeria has had its fair share. Now, amid these reports, dissenting voices to the narrative making the rounds. Different figures of the number of Nigerians killed in the latest wave of attacks vary from between 5 and 105. The dissenting voices say some of these reports are in many cases exaggerated and in others completely untrue. One of such voices is Powerful Pasha, a global branding strategist and thought leader. And she does not deny that the xenophobic attacks did not take place, but insists that it is not in the way and manner it has been reported. On the attacks on Nigerians in South Africa, she says Nigerians living there must share some of the responsibility for these attacks and wants what she describes as a more accurate narrative in the media space on the xenophobic situation in South Africa. Now, Fapono joins us on Kakaaki to share her thoughts on these and other related issues. And, of course, also weighing in on this is the spokesperson for Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And we'll be hoping to hear from him on the latest on the repatriation of Nigerians who want to leave South Africa. And, of course, that will be more later. Now, the insecurity situation in Nigeria is clearly getting out of hand, spiraling out of the security agency's control, so many say. While outrage in the form of ongoing nationwide protests continue over the abduction of teachers and students following the May 15 attack on 3 schools in Oyo State, the bloodthirsty criminals between them and now have carried out series of similar attacks in Plateau, Borno, Kaduna, Niger, and even Kogi states. It's clear that something urgent and different needs to be done if this whole insecurity menace is to be brought to an end. On Tuesday, of course, we saw the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Pastor Enoch Adeboye, sending a blunt and widely publicized message to the country's service chiefs to end the terrorism in 90 days or resign. And while the search for security solutions continue, the suggestion of decentralized security, mainly in the form of secret police, keeps popping up. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu appeared to be championing the cause when he ostensibly set the machinery in motion for the creation of state police. But since then, there has been limited movement in that direction. However, when plenary resumed at the House of Representatives on Tuesday, calls for the constitution of a state police commission resurfaced. The question, of course, on everybody's lips, why does there appear to be some foot dragging on the issue of state police? There's something fundamentally wrong with the idea that Nigerians don't know about. Is it the state police or decentralized security in general the solution to Nigeria's security challenges? And if it isn't, then what is? A lot of people would also ask. And these are some of the questions we'll be putting to a member of Nigeria's House of Representatives from Anambra State, Ifeanyi Okafor. We'll also be speaking with the security expert, Dr. Sani Shinkafi. Dr. Shinkafi is the former advisor to the Zamfara state government on security matters. And that's the height of the interviews we'll be bringing you this morning. But remember that there are other segments that we'll be bringing you to your delight. And remember that you can be part of the program by sending your views and comments to all our social media handles on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube at Africa Independent TV, so you can stay up to date with the latest news from around the globe. But in the meantime, talking about the globe, we'll go to a news desk for the world news in the meantime. This is the World News on Kakaaki, the African Voice. You're welcome. Now, the United States government says it is now actively working with Nigerian security agencies on counterterrorism operations amidst growing international concern over insecurity and attacks affecting Christian communities in parts of the country. The U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, disclosed this while appearing before the U.S. Foreign Affairs Committee during deliberations on the 2027 State Department budget. Rubio said many people had expressed concerns over violence against Christians in Nigeria, adding that Washington had intensified counterterrorism cooperation with the Nigerian government and security forces. The development comes months after Nigeria and the United States inaugurated a joint working group on security cooperation, religious freedom, civilian protection, and counterterrorism coordination. Both countries had agreed to strengthen intelligence sharing, improve civilian protection measures, and deepen collaboration against terrorist groups operating within the Lake Chad Basin and other troubled regions. The renewed partnership has also coincided with recent joint security operations involving Nigerian forces and U.S. support structures under the United States African Command, AFRICOM, targeting Islamic State-linked insurgents in the region.
Many were very concerned about violence against Christians. We are now actively in counterterrorism cooperation with the Nigerian government and Nigerian security forces, including a joint operation a couple weeks ago that took out the #2 leader of global ISIS operating from inside of the country, and that continues.
While international religious freedom groups continue to raise concerns over attacks on Christian communities, the Nigerian government maintains that insecurity in the country affects both Christians and Muslims, insisting that terrorism, banditry, and criminal violence remain broader national security challenges rather than religious persecution alone. Now, tensions are mounting in Mexico just days before the opening of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, as striking teachers threaten to disrupt tournament activities unless the government meets their demands for higher wages and pension reforms. Now, members of the dissident teachers union, CNTA, escalated their protest in Mexico City by toppling giant football-themed statues installed ahead of the World Cup and vandalizing promotional displays along the iconic Paseo de la Reforma Avenue. Protesters sprayed slogans on the damaged structures, including "If there isn't a solution, the ball won't roll." The union is demanding a 100% salary increase and the reversal of pension reforms, rejecting a previously negotiated 9% pay raise. The teachers accuse the government of prioritizing World Cup celebrations over workers' welfare and public education.
Es la impotencia que sentimos como maestros, que por más que nos organizamos, por más que marchamos, por más que gritamos, el gobierno nada más no nos escucha, no nos hace caso. Nosotros como CENTE sabemos, hemos perdido compañeros en la lucha, hemos tenido derramamiento de sangre, pero eso no nos espanta. Nosotros sabemos de la represión y vamos a seguir hasta donde dé.
The protests have already disrupted traffic, forced changes to official government engagements, and raised concerns about preparations for the World Cup, which kicks off on June 11 in Mexico City. Teachers have vowed to continue demonstrations throughout the tournament if negotiations fail. President Claudia Sheinbaum says her administration remains committed to dialogue, but insists some of the union's demands exceed available budget resources, with thousands of teachers camped in the capital and tensions rising. Mexican authorities face growing pressure to resolve the dispute before the world's biggest football event begins. Now, violent protests have erupted in parts of southern England after the release of police body cam footage showing an 18-year-old stabbing victim handcuffed by officers while repeatedly saying, "I can't breathe," moments before his death. The victim, Henry Nowak, was fatally stabbed in December 2025 in Southampton by 23-year-old Vikram Digwa, who has now been sentenced to a minimum of 21 years imprisonment for murder. The case reignited public anger after footage emerged showing police restraining the dying teenager while initially treating him as a suspect, following allegations of racial abuse made during the incident. Protesters clashed with police in Southampton, throwing bricks and other objects as outrage spread online and across political circles. Far-right activist Tommy Robinson addressed demonstrators during a rally, accusing authorities of treating white British citizens as second-rate citizens and using the case to criticize policing and immigration policies in the United Kingdom.
No matter the pain we feel, there is no justification for more violence and disorder. The attacks directed towards police officers in Southampton last night were disgraceful and completely unacceptable. This is a time for serious work, not rage. And let me be clear, we will ensure anyone found engaging in disorder meets the full force of the law, as we have done before.
Authorities say the situation remains under investigation and growing scrutiny over police conduct, use of force procedures, and handling of racially sensitive incidents involving violent crimes. British police have appealed for calm, warning against attempts to inflame tensions or exploit the murder for extremist political mobilization, as community concerns continue to deepen following the circulation of the footage. Environmental degradation along the coastline of Freetown is threatening the survival of oyster harvesting communities as the steady disappearance of mangrove forest affects one of the region's oldest traditional livelihoods. For generations, women in coastal communities around Freetown have relied on oyster farming and harvesting for income and family sustenance. But environmental experts warn that increasing human expansion, deforestation, sand mining, and coastal pollution are rapidly destroying mangrove ecosystems critical to oyster reproduction and survival. The mangroves serve as natural breeding and protective habitats for oysters and other marine species. Their destruction is now reducing oyster yields, weakening local incomes, and placing additional economic pressure on women who dominate the trade. Residents say the environmental damage is not only threatening livelihoods, but also eroding a long-standing cultural practice deeply tied to coastal identity and community survival.
Not been the enter the water for pull oyster, because when you look the mango, the oyster boku, so no need no day for enter the water for make you pull oyster. Because if boku na the mango, you just chop, you flop, you go. But now, in order again, just like I look no the river, in order to the pass to enter the water before we get oyster for cargo.
All the mangroves were cut because people are wanting to migrate, and on planned urbanizations, there was no land availability, and people were now searching for land, trying to reclaim land around the coastal area, in particular community, and they cut all the mangroves. So now that they are living there, we are now faced challenge with coastal erosion, flooding, and a lot of heat wave threat that we are facing in loss of biodiversity.
Conservation groups are calling for stronger environmental protection policies, restoration of mangrove forests, and sustainable coastal management to prevent further ecological loss and protect vulnerable fishing and oyster harvesting communities across Sierra Leone's coastline. The U.S. military launched strikes on Iran's Qassim Island overnight in what it called self-defense, hours after Kuwait said Iranian drones hit its international airport and injured several people, marking a sharp escalation in regional hostilities.
The burst was traveling between Moscow and Simferopol when it was hit in Yenikivio, Donetsk region. Emergency crews said the 11 injured were taken to hospital for treatment. Russian-installed officials in Donetsk reported the death and said the strike occurred in the early hours. The attack came amid overnight Ukrainian drone operations that reached deep into Russia's St. Petersburg oil terminal was hit, producing visible black smoke over the city as delegates gathered for the economic forum. Russian authorities said air defenses intercepted 350 drones nationwide, including 50 over the Leningrad region, and temporarily restricted flights at Pulkovo Airport. Additionally, drones were drowned over Belgorod, Kursk, Moscow, and the Sea of Azov. Ukraine's military said it also struck military targets in Russia's Tambov region. The exchange followed a large Russian missile and drone assault on Ukrainian cities on Tuesday and killed at least 22 people, including women and children. Both sides have escalated long-range strikes in recent days, with Ukraine describing the hit on Russia's infrastructure as retaliatory measures.
A drone strike on a passenger bus in Russia-controlled eastern Ukraine killed 7 people and wounded 11 on Wednesday, part of a new wave of long-range attacks that also struck an oil terminal in St. Petersburg during Russia's International Economic Forum.
Protests erupted on Monday in the central town, 140 kilometers north of Nairobi, with roads blocked and tires burnt. Police fired tear gas to disperse crowds. 1 man was shot near the base and died after being taken to the hospital by friends. A second man was brought in dead by soldiers. Authorities have not explained how they died. The U.S. plans a 50-bed facility to treat American citizens affected by an Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. A U.S. official said Kenya was chosen for its location and regional air links. Kenya has no recorded Ebola cases. Last Friday, Kenya's High Court halted the center's opening after a rights group warned of health risk. The court extended the suspension on Tuesday and ordered the government to release details of the plan.
The bus was traveling between Moscow and Simferopol when it was hit in Yenikievo, Donetsk region. Emergency crews said the 11 injured were taken to hospital for treatment. Russian-installed officials in Donetsk reported the death and said the strike occurred in the early hours. The attack came amid overnight Ukrainian drone operations that reached deep into Russia's St. Petersburg oil terminal was hit, producing visible black smoke over the city as delegates gathered for the economic forum. Russian authorities said air defenses intercepted 350 drones nationwide, including 50 over the Leningrad region, and temporarily restricted flights at Pulkovo Airport. Additionally, drones were drowned over Belgorod, Kursk, Moscow, and the Sea of Azov. Ukraine's military said it also struck military targets in Russia's Tambov region. The exchange followed a large Russian missile and drone assault on Ukrainian cities on Tuesday and killed at least 22 people, including women and children. Both sides have escalated long-range strikes in recent days, with Ukraine describing the hit on Russia's infrastructure as retaliatory measures.
It's been 4 years since a peaceful Pentecost Sunday service in Ondo State turned into a scene of unimaginable bloodshed. The families of the 40 worshippers killed in the June 5, 2022 violent attacks at St. Francis Catholic Church Orwell can finally sleep with some closure. And this is because 4 members of the Al-Shabaab terrorist group have been handed death sentences by a federal high court in Abuja. Now, AIT's news correspondent Chibuzo Okeze has been following the trial and was there to cover the judgment.
It was an attack that shocked the country. A Sunday service turned into a bloodbath. Eyewitnesses described a scene similar to a violent movie, explosives and bonfire erupting from different directions, worshippers scampering for safety, while others, including women and children, fall into the fury of bullets. Our Ondo State and Nigeria was thrown into shock and mourning. But while survivors and victims' families prayed for justice, the arrest and trial of the suspects did not come till 3 years later. Nigeria's Secret Police, the SSS, led by Oluwatosin Ajayi, put the case on its priority list, keenly tracking those behind, and finally had them arraigned in court in August 2025. On Tuesday, Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court delivered a landmark judgment, finding 4 out of the 5 defendants guilty on a 9-count charge. The charges included terrorism financing, hostage taking, and the use of explosives in public places. Idris Abdulmalik Omeiza, Al-Kazim Idris, Jamiu Abdulmalik, and Abdul Halim Idris are to die by hanging. Apart from the death sentence, they also received 20-year sentences for conspiracy and membership in the Al-Shabaab terrorist group. Meanwhile, a fifth defendant, 47-year-old Momo Abubakar, was discharged and acquitted on all charges. The prosecution closed its massive case in February 2026 after presenting 11 witnesses and 23 pieces of forensic evidence, including autopsy reports. During the trial, survivors gave emotional testimonies recalling the terrifying moments, sporadic gunshots and explosives ripped through St. Francis Catholic Church in Ondo State during a Pentecost service on June 5th, 2022.
The DSS did a very, very thorough and painstaking investigation. And it was that thorough and painstaking investigation that the trial was anchored. Therefore, the evidence adduced by the prosecution was ironclad. And so we're not surprised that the judgment came out the way it did.
We are appealing it. I've told my Lord, even in the open court, I'm going upstairs.
The infamous attack left roughly 40 worshippers dead and over 100 others permanently scarred. The trial judge, Justice Wike, dismissed submissions raised by the defendants before sealing the fate of the 4 attackers. Chibuzo Okezie, EAT News, Abuja.
And with that, we'll bring you Kakaaki Business.
Hello and welcome to Kakaaki Business. Hundreds of ships are reported to have been trapped in the Middle East as a result of the ongoing tension occasioned by the US-Iran-Israeli war. The chief executive officer of V Group, a global ship manager, Comfort Olsen, says even if the US and Iran agree to halt the port and open the Strait of Hormuz, ships trapped in the Gulf will be unable to live without safety assurance. Renewed hostilities in the 3-month-old conflict are testing a shaky ceasefire, while hundreds of ships and about 20,000 seafarers remain stuck in the region with Hormuz largely closed. Speaking with Reuters, V Group, which manages around 800 vessels and had 13 ships stuck in the Gulf, half of them tankers, says for traffic to return to pre-war levels, when an average of 425 vessels pass via Hormuz daily, ships operator would need solid assurances of safe passage, in which the international community would need to be involved. The International Monetary Fund has warned government against resorting to broad subsidies, price control and tax cuts in response to rising energy and food prices, arguing that poorly designed intervention can worsen inflation, strain public finances, and deepen global shortages. In its May report titled Responding to the Energy and Food Price Shock, Getting the Policy Details Right, the IMF said policymakers confronting surging prices face a difficult balancing act between protecting households and businesses and preserving already limited fiscal resources. The report comes as countries grapple with renewed volatilities in global energy markets and concerns that geopolitical tension could fuel higher inflation and weaken economic growth. Nigeria's financial markets are witnessing a fresh push towards ethical investing with the introduction of a new Sharia-compliant investment vehicle, the Alpha 10 Halal Fund. Speaking during a press briefing on the fund in Abuja, Chairman of the Board of Directors of Alpha 10, Chibuzo Ekwekwo, said although the fund is structured in line with Islamic finance principle, it is open to investors of all backgrounds. He explained that the initiative is designed to mobilize capital into a productive sector of the economy, while providing investors with an ethical investment option.
If you look deeply into the text, you'll find that there's an inference, an implication for investment in ethical industries. There are Christians who will not invest in an alcohol company and who will not put up their money for interest because that's their belief. For those Christians, it is the same, value that the halal product presents for an Islamic person that it presents to them, and so for other religions. So it's important we understand that while this is modeled along the Islamic faith, that it is actually available to all faiths.
Also speaking at the event, Managing Director of Alpha 10, Abigail Utomi, said ethical investing is becoming an increasingly important driver of global financial markets, and that Nigeria must embrace the trend to attract broader pool of capital.
We know that the ethical investment space is asset-based, economic-driven, value-adding, and we believe that merging these two ecosystems together to create wealth whilst positively impacting the economy, businesses and individuals is one to further, and that's why we can proudly say that our future is your future.
For the small and the big investors in the country, and it is halal in the sense that those who are afraid of going to banking, there are people typically in the northern part of the country who look at interest as a barrier between them and banking. And this process of halal products is a kind of something that can expand the financial inclusion. It's a good product meant to target those smaller savers as well as those who have large money, and at the same time, they expand financial inclusion in the country. In addition to that, the safety of your fund is guaranteed from the presentations made.
Utomi added that the Allow Fund will contribute to financial inclusion by providing ethical investment solutions for faith-conscious individuals and not-deserved population who have traditionally remained outside the conventional financial system. She expressed confidence that the initiative will help expand participation in Nigeria's capital market while promoting responsible and sustainable investment practices. And the Center of Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity has urged ministries, departments, and agencies of government to utilize its newly released Transparency and Integrity Index methodology to improve disclosure ahead of the National Transparency Ranking later in the year. Executive Director of the Center, Umar Yakubu, made the call during the presentation of the methodology framework, describing the index as a preventive tool against corruption, particularly within government institutions.
Because we do this so that MDAs can prepare. As a civil society organization, we're actually interested in the MDAs doing better, let them improve in their level of transparency around procurement, around their budgeting, around human resources, around control of corruption. So that is our interest. So just to do this is to encourage them that, look, this is the methodology. If they have any concerns or any things they think we need to review, that's why we do it every year, and we've done it for the past 6 years.
Also speaking at the event, the representative of the Director General of the Bureau of Public Service Reform, Gloria Omene, emphasized that ministries, departments, and agencies will be assessed and ranked based on key 5 pillars of transparency and integrity. She said the ranking framework provides a measurable standard for evaluating institutional commitments to accountability and good governance.
The Transparency and Integrity Index methodology employs 5 parameters to benchmark the performance of MDAs towards good governance in the following critical areas: fiscal transparency, open procurement and contracting, anti-corruption, citizens' engagement, human resource, and inclusion.
On all organizations to take this ranking as a step forward. Nobody is not doing everything, and nobody is doing it all right in this country, but we hope that this will serve as a lesson for others to sit up and improve for them.
Organizers say the initiative will serve as a benchmark for encouraging greater transparency, reducing corruption risk, and strengthening public confidence in government institutions. And lastly, Africa's rising debt burden is increasingly threatening development across the continent, with experts warning that growing debt repayment are diverting funds away from critical sectors such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure. At a 3-day debt management initiative for journalists held in Nairobi, Kenya, policymakers and development advocates highlighted concerns that many African governments are dedicating a large share of their revenues to servicing debt.
Speaking at the forum, Interim Executive Director of the African Forum and Network on Debt and Development, Young Theophilus Jong, said public debt in sub-Saharan Africa has doubled over the past decade and is nearing 60% of gross domestic product. He warned that opaque loan agreement and restricted public access to borrowing information could undermine national sovereignty and limit future policy choices, stressing the need for greater transparency and accountability in public borrowing.
Every time
Budgets are squeezed by debt repayments. Ordinary people feel it first. When 71 out of every 100 shillings in Kenya goes to debt, a huge portion of budget elsewhere disappears into debt service. It is ordinary families who carry that burden.
Participants pointed to Nigeria as a clear example of the continent's debt challenges. According to Debt Management Office, Nigeria's total public debt rose from about 49 trillion naira in 2022 to 97 trillion naira in 2023 before climbing to 157 trillion naira.
We have had a lot of debt that has been used in African countries for spendthrift purposes, and then you have debt that also can be potentially declared odious debt, because this debt did not follow, the normal rules that are supposed to be respected when countries want to borrow.
Stakeholders at the Nairobi Forum called for stronger legislative oversight, prudent borrowing practices, and improved domestic revenue mobilization to reduce dependence on debt. They also urged journalists to use data from international financial institutions to strengthen evidence-based reporting and hold government accountable for debt management decisions.
And that's it on Kakaaki Business. Good morning.
But it's also been said that Nigeria's fiscal reality is increasingly being defined by a widening gap, of debt gap, being rising, of course, the obligations, and we're looking at the fact that we have debt obligations against weak internally generated revenue, and that's because with the latest $560 million loan approved by the House of Representatives just on the April 28th of the year 2026. And that is to connect Lagos to Sokoto. Public debt has now exceeded 159.3 trillion naira, and that's an equivalent of $111 billion. And of course, people say no thanks to naira depreciation and the new CBN rules on long-term liabilities on bank overdraft. But again, between debt and between internally generated revenue, one would ask, where does the money go and who really follows the money? But let's look at some insecurity stories. This time, operatives of the Edo State Police Command have recovered the decomposing bodies of 2 kidnapped victims, unfortunately, from a forest hideout alongside the Benin-Lagos Expressway. The victims were among the 3 women abducted from their residence in Iyowa community of their North local government area of Edo State. What a tragedy. Let's take a look.
The victims were adopted on May 9, 2026, when armed men invaded their home in Iyowa community of their Northeast local government area of Edo State and whisked away 3 women. Days after the adoption, family members reportedly received disturbing video clips showing the victims being tortured in captivity before one of the adopted women and another victim from a different family were allegedly killed by their adopters. According to the police, a coordinated operation involving the Violent Crime Response Units and drone units led operation to the gang's hideouts in the forest on May 19. Investigations later led to the arrest of 23-year-old Musa Aruna, an alleged member of the gang. During interrogation, the suspect reportedly confessed to his involvement in the crime and subsequently guided the investigators to the forest hideout where the bodies of the victims were recovered.
He has also led us to this point where we are about to recover the remains of some of the victims whom they held in captivity, even after collecting ransom payment.
One of the kidnapped victims, whose mother was among those killed by the kidnappers, recounts her harrowing experience while in captivity.
It was me and my family at first. Before we know, they started adding people to us. So at first, they were calling our family for ransom. They started from 200 million. They would torture us and torture us. So fortunate, they called my mom. They asked her, Mama, what's your age? My mom said 66 years old. They asked one other lady, what's your age? The lady said 45. So before we know, they carried my mom, 66 years old, and the other lady, 45. They moved them away from us a little. And one other boy, 15 years old, they shot them just one bullet. So when they shot the bullet, they shot it through the other lady to my mom. We were seeing them.
Family paid ransom?
Yes, my family paid ransom.
How much?
11 million naira with other things they asked them to buy.
Quite sad, and we sincerely really empathize with that young lady and all Nigerians across who are also going through this. I mean, it's no longer just saying that insecurity is a distant reality only in the northern region of Nigeria. It's spreading, and I think that at the moment, more than lip service, more than anything, actions and boots on the ground is required. More so, the rescue of those children and those teachers in captivity in Oyo State. Our next talking point still leads to leadership, this time to political leadership, and there seems to be no end in sight to the leadership crisis rocking the People's Democratic Party, PDP. Now, two parallel presidential candidates have emerged for the 2027 general elections, with rival factions both claiming legitimacy. Let's take a look.
The ambitions of over 8,200 PDP members report to have aspired for different political positions are now hanging in the balance. As the 2027 general elections draw close, rival factions are sticking to their guns, plotting each other's political downfall. Their divisions could not have been more stark, with two camps producing two presidential candidates. While the Abdurrahman Mohammed-led PDP, which has Senator Sandy Ono as its candidate, claiming it holds the authentic mandate, the Kabiru Turaki-led group, which has handed its 2027 ticket to former President Goodluck Jonathan, refuses to back down. The National Publicity Secretary for the Abdurrahman Mohammed faction, Jugundu Mohammed, insists there is no crisis. He warns that those parading themselves as rival faction will soon face legal consequences.
Most worrisome and unfortunate that the person of President Goodluck Jonathan have allowed his name to be dragged into such kind of unfortunate situations. And it behoves on him to come out and speak to Nigerians, to either dissociate himself or to align himself so that Nigerians can now know the kind of status they will ascribe to the former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan.
But the opposing camp fires back. Ini Ememobong, National Publicity Secretary for the Turaki-led faction, labels the Mohammed group an illegal entity.
I'm sure no Nigerian is in doubt as to which people are the people who are operating as an opposition party. Nobody. Not even the people who are pretending. They've told you that, look, they are pretenders, whether the Sandy Ono, Wike, all of the people there, they've told you they are supporting President Tinubu. They've not hidden it. So they are clear pretenders. So there's absolutely nothing that creates, that makes it difficult to differentiate the real PDP.
Ememobong accuses the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, of engineering the crisis to destroy opposition parties. Despite the turmoil, he reassures supporters that the PDP remains strong and ready to reclaim power.
With the PDP's leadership deeply fractured, over 8,200 aspirants who bought nomination forms from the different factions are now trapped in a dangerous political limbo. With the 2027 elections fast approaching, the ultimate survival for Nigeria's main opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, is yet to be seen. Amaka Okoro, AIT News, Abuja.
Get Fit in 60 seconds with Dolly Phillips. Now everyone has 60 seconds in every day to spare. So if you're ready, let's go! Well done! I hope you had a great workout. Anyway, what I need you to do is to follow us on Instagram at Alpha Fitness Studios and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Alpha Fitness Studios, for free workout videos, free dance videos, sales and promos, and make sure you join us at the gym Alpha Fitness Studios in Lekki Phase 1 next time you're in Lagos. So until the next time, bye-bye.
Welcome to the Leadership Clinic. Today, I'm speaking on great leaders break bad habits. We all have habits we wish we didn't have. Each and every one of us is dealing with one or more of very bad habits that we just want to change, but sometimes it looks like we lack the capacity to actually bring about change. The interesting thing is that leaders are known for taking some tough decisions and making things happen. Maybe some of the bad habits that you have probably could be biting your nails when you are nervous. Maybe you procrastinate on important tasks. Maybe you spend too much money on things you don't even need. Or maybe you lose your temper too quickly. And every time you do it, you tell yourself,
Get ready for a bold new chapter in political discourse. The conversations that matter most are stepping into the spotlight like never before. Political Platform, the hard-hitting, no-holds-barred program you have trusted on Ray Power Radio is making a powerful move to television. Tune in to Africa Independent Television, AIT, as Political Platform debuts on your screen, bringing deeper analysis, sharper debates, and the voices shaping our nation's future right into your screens. From policy and politics breakdowns to real-time discussions with key stakeholders, this is more than a program. It is where opinions are tested, truths are uncovered, and the people's voice is heard. Join seasoned hosts and expert guests as they tackle the issues that define our democracy. No filters, no distractions, just real talk. Political Platform, now on AIT, 9 to 10 a.m. every weekday. Stay informed, stay engaged, be part of the conversation.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live. The issues as they break. The multitude. The political figures. The state and non-state actors.
It's a serious threat to democracy. And our government seem to be incapable of protecting.
The scheming.
This is not a period we should say bow and go. Every part of this country is equal.
The intrigue.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection. I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe in godfatherism in politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time.
Good morning, and thank you again for staying with us. If you're just joining us, this is Kakaaki, the African Voice, and we're bringing you our newspaper review live here from our studios on Paduma Hills. We do have the delight of the presence of these two distinguished gentleman and lady. I just called that deputy director. She said, I'll give you a new title. Well, all joined, but deputy editor, Blueprint newspaper, Chizoba Omeche is with us here in the studio. Chizoba, good morning.
Good morning.
Great. And you have a big fan. Someone said, I love her dreads. Tell her when you say that.
Nana.
Yes. So I will tell her. All right, Chooks, it's always good to see you. As always, legendary Chooks. Hate him, but you have to love him. All right, absolutely. All right, let's start with our first daily this morning. We are starting off with this Nigerian newspaper. This Nigeria is looking at Owo massacre, death by hanging for 4 terrorists convicted over killing of more than 40 worshippers. Judge cites complete chain of guilt. And that is the writing factor to that lead story. Bottom page, bandits strike again, kidnap 3 in Oyo, 7 in Zamfara. Adelabu's sister, twin sons abducted, gunmen raid Zamfara Polytechnic. Going over to the leadership, we still look at that story reactions as court sentences 4 to death over 2 church massacre, and that's on page 4 of the leadership newspaper. And the Daily Monitor still looks at the court sentences, says court sentences 4 convicts to death by hanging. But just above the masthead, quickly to take that, troops kill 50 terrorists, top ISWAP commander in Northeast, and that is the Daily Monitor. The Standard Times looks still at the Owo massacre, court sentences 4 terrorists to death by hanging, and that's their lead there. Ayedatiwa, Catholic Bishop, Lord Judiciary, and that's the writing factor to the front page. Nigerian pilot is also looking at the lead there, Owo church massacre, 4 terrorists sentenced to death by hanging is the lead story there. And then when you look at the rider, it says Federal High Court convicts 2022 attackers that killed 41 worshippers. Court finds defendants guilty of terrorism, kidnapping, conspiracy, and membership of banned group. 5th accused acquitted as DSS fails to establish case against him, and that's on page 8 of the Nigerian pilot. You would also see the faces of the convicted right there on the front page of the Nigerian pilot. Over to the Al Jazeera Nigeria, Owo massacre still is the lead. Federal government secures death sentence against 4 terrorists. 1 accused discharged and acquitted by the trial court. Judgment, a warning to defiant terrorists. DSS lawyer speaks there. Over to the Authority, Chicks paper. It says, Owo church massacre, court sentences 4 terrorists to death by hanging. Acquits, discharges 5th defendant. Governor Ayedatiwa urged to sign convicts execution, and that's the writing factor to that story. Blueprint is looking at the lead there, 4 terrorists in Owo church massacre to die by hanging, and that's what you find there. A writing factor says 5th suspect discharged, acquitted. Ex-Power Minister's sisters, twin sons abducted, 6 Zamfara police students kidnapped. And that's what you find on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper this morning. A lot of the newspapers will be running with this this morning as we go on. The Daily Asset is still looking at that story as the lead, talking about the Owo massacre, death by hanging of the 4 terrorists who have been found convicted on their front page. And we'll be taking other papers as we go on. There's Daily Trust again. Gunmen abduct students in Zamfara is the lead story there. Yes, sad story, but just coming in this morning, that's the lead that we find. And then we also see the Whistler. The Whistler is looking at security crisis. Sokoto bleeds again as terrorists kill 20 after 17 murder rampage, and that's on page 8. The Vanguard is looking still, but this time, Senate to federal government security agencies deploy all resources to rescue kidnapped school children, and that's on page 5 of the Vanguard. The Guardian looks at worsening insecurity, raises concerns over Amotekун's capacity funding, and that's on page 8 of the Guardian newspaper. And of course, Daily Sun takes it to the NLC, threatens total strike over terrorism, backs teachers strike, demands urgent action on insecurity on page 6. Daily Global is looking at voter data leak. Interesting. Says police arrest INEC officer, interrogate Wike's aide Lere Olayinka, and that's on the front page of the Daily Global. And the Daily Independent looks at telcos, investments, fuel telecom boom as data demand soars. Says their stakeholders project continued steady rise in mobile subscription. And the Nigerian News Direct is looking at NEC OK's net billing, opens power grid to solar producers, allows businesses earn credits from excess electricity exports. And that's the writing factor. It's on page 2 of the Nigerian News Direct, and that's on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. Now let's look at all the lead stories here this morning. Most of it is running round and running through the conviction of the killings of the killers of the 2022 church massacre there in Owo. But let's begin from there. I think I'll start with you, Chizoba. Death by hanging for 4 terrorists. Your paper led with that. This Nigeria led with it. Most of the papers led with it. How do you look at this?
It's a welcome development because the activities of whether we call them terrorists, bandits, in whatever name, is really getting out of hand. And to see that a few that have been arrested have been convicted. But we know that it's not likely to end there because even the Defense Council already says it's going to appeal. But the DSS has got this, and it expectedly will serve as a deterrent to others to know that if you are caught, you're going in for it. And it also gives confidence or restores confidence to some extent to the judiciary that they have the ability to see trials to the end, because sometimes people complain about how long some trials drag, and at the end of the day, the outcome is not really satisfactory. But for me, it's good that they've been sentenced. There's also the snag that since the return of democracy, most of the governors don't sign death warrants because there's been a lot of publications on Nigeria's growing death row, where you have people that have been on death row for over 15 years who have not been executed, neither has their sentence been commuted. So we hope that this might be different, in as much as we know that as soon as the appeal, the first is to get stay of execution. But we look forward to seeing the end of this trial, and that justice will be served.
All right, Chooks, I'll come back to you. I mean, she's spoken about something really clear. I mean, one of the writers of the newspapers did speak to that they were being pushed to be able to look at how he would sign the death warrant. And the word there is to convince to sign. And so that means there's a need for pressure. And she's just alluded to that. What is first your take on this lead? Is it justice, or is it, not here to hold?
To begin with, kudos to Nigerian judiciary and Nigerian criminal justice system. In fact, some of us don't realize that tomorrow is tomorrow is going to be 4 years that this terrorist struck at the heart of St. Xavier Catholic Church in Owo, Ondo State. And, Catholic Church is not just any church. Roman Catholic Church has over 1.4 billion members, adherents worldwide. And at the time, even Pope Pope condemned Pope and several world leaders condemned that attack. It was an attack of international dimension. Let's not forget that Al-Shabaab in 2013 in Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya, Al-Shabaab also created international sensation when they attacked Westgate Mall. And persons from over 13 countries died in that attack. It was a very, very remarkable attack. So for people who had links with Al-Shabaab to come, and because Al-Shabaab is an East African-based terrorist organization, for us in Nigeria to have, at the heart of Nigeria in Kogi State, to have Al-Shabaab terror cell there, and they struck a church, killing over, some said 40, some said 50, Until today, a lot of people still bear the scars of that attack. Even during the trial, a woman came who was an amputee. A woman who lost both legs was also one of the witnesses at the trial. Medical doctor, several issues. But the truth, the fact remains that a government that has the will, they say where there's a will and there's a way. The attack happened on the 5th of June 2022. And the following day, now late President Muhammadu Buhari organized a dinner, hosted a dinner of the All Progressive Congress. What did that tell you? The message was very clear that we don't care, if people get killed, because a responsible government, would have at least shelved that dinner, because it was an attack that struck at the heart of Nigeria. And a few months ago, we saw Nigeria battling with this issue of the U.S. labeling Nigeria a country of particular concern, because they feel that, people get attacked and nothing gets done. But it's remarkable that the DSS began the prosecution of this rule less than 10 months ago. Just less than 10 months ago. And we're able to secure conviction yesterday. So it means that had President Buhari had the willpower to try these persons, it happened in June. He had about a year to exit. So had someone like President Buhari had the willpower to prosecute these terrorists, they would have at least, seen an end to that. And talking about Governor Ayedatiwa, he was a deputy governor at the time these attacks happened. So it should be very, very personal to him. I'm sure he'll be celebrating, because then his then boss, Governor, now late Governor Akeredolu, he kept fighting President Buhari. He kept talking about, justice for people, because these are his citizens. He kept pushing, but, he was like a lone voice at the time. And what does that tell us? It tells us that whenever there's terrorism, whenever attacks occur, nobody gets spared. Look at what happened in Abuja, the UN building bombers. And by the way, they're also standing trial. It's good that, when people commit offenses, they are brought to book. That may not entirely stop others from committing such crime, but at least it will serve as a deterrent, so that if you want to commit the crime, you also know that there are consequences. Because if you saw those guys yesterday, I saw them on TV and newspapers, you see that these are guys who probably were farmers, probably who didn't know anything, who are taken from their places of work. Some of them could be artisans, and brainwashed. They are quite young, and they may not have known the extent, the consequences of their action. But yesterday, it was made to bear on them. And even if you talk about appeal, people forget that when you appeal, you only fault the process of court of original jurisdiction. You do not introduce fresh evidence. Because the DSS was very, very thorough in that they brought...
But where I was going with this with you, because we need to move to the next topic, is on the... Nigeria has often debated, since democracy, the issue of capital punishment. I remember, I think it was in 2014, former Governor Dwara granted, prerogative of mercy to 14 inmates who were on trial. And, several others have happened.
Yeah.
Do you think this will be followed through? And what's your direct advisory?
But you see, the truth is this. You see, that something has never happened doesn't mean it cannot happen. That's the truth. We do not, we cannot prejudge, of course. Exactly. Like I said, this is a case, this is a trial that should be dear to Governor Ayedatiwa's heart. He was deputy governor when this, and as we speak, there are still people who are bedridden on account of this
Absolutely.
attack. So when you talk about
clemency.
Yes, no, or you talk about mercy for not clemency now, but you talk about governors not wanting to. You understand? You also think about those who are victims, who are still suffering from the scars of the attack.
But we must also know that sometimes when people appeal, it's not as if they know they are going to win. It's about delaying.
And lawyers too. Lawyers also do
from
that. Lawyers also do that just to buy time.
All right, let's still talking about the tragedy of kidnapping and terrorism. Terrorists abduct Adelabu's sister's twin sons, kidnap students in Zamfara. And of course, you saw that story run through yesterday and later this morning. Chizoba, how do you look at that? Now, the focus on schools now, I mean, it used to be churches, not that they've stopped, but now moved over to tertiary and primary institutions. So there's this sense of fear for even those people who are within schooling communities. And we seem to have failed in the narrative of really explaining whether the Safe School initiative has really worked. She's about this kidnap and this abduction of students, of both the former minister's sisters and their kids and those students. Just when we're still looking at the issue of the Oyo, kidnapping case and the children who have been kidnapped.
For the former minister's sister, there are two different scenarios because they are pupils, but they were not kidnapped in school. They were on their way to school. And it looks like they were targeted because it was on the way that they were accosted and they were taken. In every situation is disheartening. But for the school, for the varsity students, pupils and all, last week we spoke extensively on it.
Yes.
No parent should send their child to school and panic that the child might not return because some crazy people can go and pick them up and demand for ransom. And we know the situation in Oyo, where a teacher was said beheaded, the pastor's wife is said to have died, and I think 5 of the students have also died. There are gory pictures of these mad people putting burning plastic and pouring it on them. And it's something that should make everybody worried and seek solution. Because it means that any school now, usually used to be in the north, the latest kidnapping of school people in Borno, I think 42, seem to have been
swept
under the carpet to a large extent, even though NANS say they are going on, or NANS is protesting in that regard. But just protesting, yes, it should awaken the people in authority on their responsibility. But it goes way beyond that. And if the security agencies and the people in authority are not awake yet to their responsibility, then we're in very big problem. Because
is the word awake or overwhelmed, or some will say clueless?
Okay, probably overwhelmed. That's more like it, because they say they are going to, the protest is to awaken them to their responsibility.
Yes.
And I ask if they are still in slumber at this time, then we're in serious problem. But it goes to show that every school should be protected. I said last week, and some people argue that the police does not every community has a police post or DPO, but the nearest community will have. There should be, I talked also about the special, there's a squad that is in the Nigeria Police, SIS, I'm trying to remember the full name, that has to do with elections and schools. And I said, if the elections are not here yet, as it were, probably they should focus on the schools. Yeah. And then we ask, to what extent are they even equipped? Because it's not just saying you have a police post where you don't even have, when they are not equipped, where you have vehicles that are not fueled. In Oyo, I think they said it took 2 hours for the security agencies to get there. The explanation is yet to be provided. The same thing that happened where they said the security men were pulled out. We had a lot of this. But we'll keep asking, why does it not get better? There is need to actually is it have a think of the way we do security in Nigeria, beyond the fact that they are under paid or their welfare, the equipment and all, or they might not be up to par. But what they have, they should be trained in such a way that they can deploy it. And unfortunately, yesterday, the Senate refused a move to audit military spending. Because yes, we keep saying their budget is not all released. Even if it's 30%, they should be accountable to the public on what they use it. That's when you can understand, I mean, this has been done, this needs to be done. But for us to believe, like, NNPC used to be that way. There was a time NNPC was a sacred cow. Now with the military, the resources that are going to them should be accounted for. That's the only way you can say, this has been done, this needs to be done. But we really need to do better, because sending your child to school should not be sending the child to be slaughtered.
All right, someone said these terrorists are gradually destroying our educational system in Nigeria. This is as a result of failed leadership, very shameful. That's coming from Obiajulu Ezimadu. And Akodo Obola says, Sheyi Makinde should continue playing politics with the lives of those children. I sincerely pray Bat wins in 2027. Sheyi Makinde, how far? Well, that's a political statement. But Chuk, somebody also talks about the need for self-defense here. I saw that earlier on here, where someone was saying that we do need Nigeria needs state police train and arm locals appropriately to defend their people, and that's coming from Omario. But you know, while you speak on these interventions, it's also clear to say that the insecurity is not only happening now in Oyo or far north, it's also coming to the south and coming closer to urban areas. Just last week, we saw a story that broke out that an estate here in Abuja, the FF Global Estate, just to mention, was attacked, and they were just in time enough to call the police within 25 minutes to come, where, you know, some people who walked in but realized that they were there to cause mayhem. So, and again, the Uber driver that was killed by car snatching, you know,
our colleagues
yes.
in Channel, have you
and of course, our colleagues in Arise that was killed, and you know, just recently, a colleague somewhere was also kidnapped but found. So, it's no longer just at the doorstep of communities in, someone was saying, far, far away land. It's with us. So the issue of state police chokes and citizens being trained to defend themselves, this is a call by one of our interventions here. How do you look at that?
You see, it's a good one, and I'm happy you spoke about the FR estate. You see, there used to be this campaign before that when you see something, you say something. Because it's only God that is omnipotent and omnipresent. There's nobody on earth that can tell, no matter how the kind of technology you have, that you say you can tell what will happen tomorrow. We've seen that happen in the US. The US has the largest military spending in the world, you understand? But terrorists came to, not just, they didn't attack from Saudi Arabia or from Iran or from whatever. They came to America, trained as pilots in America, you know, spent time, bought vehicles, lived in America, and attacked Americans during 9/11, you understand? All over the world, the Mossad is reputed to be one of the best spy agencies in the world. Mossad, they have the Shin Bet. That's internal security, that's their own DSS in Israel. But they were there, Hamas, you know, very ragtag, you know, terrorists, invaded Israel. I mean, we're witnesses, you know, it shocked the whole world. What does that tell you? You know, the only guarantee for safety is if terrorists don't want to strike. As long as they want to strike, they will strike, because there's always, like I said, we're not infallible. Even with all the trainings by Mossad and by the CIA and by the FBI, terrorists still came on their soils to attack. But you know, you ask yourself, what was the response of Israel after the attacks? What was the response of the US after the attack? Don't forget that President Bush was in a class with children when 9/11 happened, you understand? He was Republican. But the Democrats did not blame him. What they did at the time was to rally around, they said, okay, Al-Qaeda was responsible for this. We go and hunt them. Americans rallied around George Bush. Forget about their political differences at the time. Let's deal with our enemies first, then we can resolve this matter later. When it happened in Israel, people did not call for Netanyahu's sack. What they did at the time was, okay, this is our common enemy. We have to be Israelis first. We have to keep this country as Israel first before we talk about, if it's the Likud party that's going to become prime minister, or the Labour Party, or whoever's going to be prime minister. So I think what they've done, and if you look at the current war in the Gulf, you see President, what's his name, President Trump, always tweeting, always posting things that they've destroyed the Iranian naval capability. They are this, they are that. It's all propaganda. So you see that perception is very important.
Absolutely.
As long as even we in the media, and this is where the media comes to play, play this role. A few weeks ago, the most wanted terrorist on African soil was killed by a joint cooperation between American and Nigerian security agencies. And President Trump singled out American and Nigerian intelligence. The U.S. AFRICOM commander in Germany said that without the help of Nigeria, we wouldn't have been able to take out Al-Muniki, this guy who is seen as a...
So bring him back.
So what I'm saying, in this context, if we do not cooperate with security agencies, like you said, the one in FAB, they were able to thwart that because people saw things. How many police officers do we have in Nigeria? Less than 500,000. How many soldiers do we have? We have less than 1 million, give and take, in a country of 220 million people. So it's practically impossible for us, for security agencies it's practically impossible if we do not, without the cooperation of citizens. Okay. So when we see something, we say something.
So talking about playing politics with security, it was disappointing that the APC in Oyo State yesterday had to come up with a press statement blaming Makinde. When, if we want to talk about APC states that have been under siege, is way more than. But for me, instead of coming together to seek solution, when the bandits go and kidnap us, they don't ask which party your parents belong to, or tribe or religion. They take everybody. So we should not play. It's a very dangerous trend to be talking about is APC, is PDP, is ABGA. Everybody should come together. And if, like you said, if there's any contribution, meaningful contribution you can make, this is the time.
All right, let's talk about that politics now that you just mentioned. And this time we're talking about the voter data leak. Police arrest INEC officer, interrogate Wike's aide, Olayinka. Daily Global ran with that as their lead story. And in fact, some of our fellow reviewers here online have already taken time to give us a review already. Someone said, well, Leke should be heading to jail and not for interrogation. I don't know. Maybe Chooks, you want to come in here first?
Yeah, I think what Lere did was like what we used to do when we were in primary school. When teacher says, all of you close your eyes, raise your hands, teacher walks out, and when he steps back, excuse me, sir, Chizoba opened her eyes. Then teacher asks you, how did you know that she opened her eyes? When I saw that too, I was amused because, this is supposed to be somebody's private information.
Details.
Because what El-Rufai is suffering now is not much different from what, if you're able to, it means that somebody close to INEC was able to hack into, it's like giving me my account statement. There was a time...
When it doesn't belong to you.
No, yes. Because you cannot go, or somebody's medical records, you cannot go and...
Without the person's express.
You understand me? It's even, you can't go to a medical facility and ask for somebody's medical records when you're not the person, when you're not the owner of the records. So it's going to be very interesting, coming days to see how.
It's good that they've arrested him. Probably he will also give all the people that gave him the information. But beyond that, INEC needs to overhaul its units, particularly the one that has to do with the data. Everybody there, if I have a say, should actually be moved out, because this came out. This might not be the first time. Who knows how many times they've done it? And you know, there's been a lot of issues about data protection in Nigeria. We know that even the little one that you get messages that you wonder how did the person, there's been issue about trading in data by agencies, by mobile, GSM, mobile providers and all. And now we're talking about INEC, where you have everything, your home address, your name, everything about you as it is. So if you want to if you want to trace anybody's home, because if I'm registered in my village, it means I have to use my
personal information.
So it means that if you have access to that, you can actually give it to anybody. And we're talking about curbing insecurity in the country. So for me, beyond just arresting him, we also need to have the particular INEC officer involved or personnel named.
Because he did not work in isolation.
Yes, somebody gave it to him. Should be named, and they should do further investigation to see how many other persons' data has been compromised this way.
You know, maybe very quickly I should add that maybe INEC needs to go to the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board. I was privileged to go to JAMB, you know, during the last UMT exams, and I was shocked. I was very impressed at how the outgoing JAMB registrar, Professor Ishak Oloyede, has been able to. You know that when we are there, you can be in JAMB and be viewing an UMT center in Eket. In fact, when I was there, one of the officers, you know, called the examiner there. Say somebody just moved something from table A to table B. Say go there, right? You know, real time. So I was asking them. I said, so this is possible in Nigeria, and the way JAMB is, the way if you go to JAMB, they eat breakfast, lunch there. They don't. So because the outgoing registrar, from what I heard, said that doesn't want you to go out there. You want to go and buy a charge card out.
So it makes everything available.
Yes, because all you have touts, you have what you call this, you know, who stay outside and extort people and say, no, I know somebody in JAMB. You know, they're able to. If JAMB is able to do that, we can also do that.
But the issue is not the system. There was no external breach.
It's a human factor, right?
It's the staff.
The human factor.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that's a lot that we can take this morning. But some comments coming in for you, Chuk. Say, Chuk, small feathers to your head on that analysis. We need not politicize our insecurity challenge as a tool for campaign. Rather, we need to come together to confront the security challenge. And that is Adebola 2243. Someone also said, Chuk, thank you for that background history earlier on. And we appreciate that. And you seem to be getting a lot of credit this morning.
Commendation.
some loving going on. I'm surprised.
Thank you very much.
All right, as usual, thank you.
Thank
you. He's smiling. You made him smile this morning. I like that. Isabel, thank you so much. Always a delight to have you here with us on our newspaper review. And you bring color. I saw all your fans on Facebook.
Very bright colors.
I'm telling you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be going straight into our first talking point this morning. Don't go anywhere.
Get ready for a bold new chapter in political discourse. The conversations that matter most are stepping into the spotlight like never before. Political platform, the hard-hitting, no-holds-barred program you have trusted on Ray-Power Radio is making a powerful move to television. Tune in to Africa Independent Television, AIT, as political platform debuts on your screen, bringing deeper analysis, sharper debates, and the voices shaping our nation's future right into your screens. From policy and politics breakdowns to real-time discussions with key stakeholders, this is more than a program. It is where opinions are tested, truths are uncovered, and the people's voice is heard. Join seasoned hosts and expert guests as they tackle the issues that define our democracy. No filters, no distractions, just real talk. Political platform now on AIT, 9 to 10 a.m. every weekday. Stay informed, stay engaged, be part of the conversation.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content, follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
The issues as they break. The multitude, the political figures, the state and non-state actors.
It's a serious threat to democracy. And our government seem to be incapable of protecting.
The scheming.
This is not a period we should say bow and go. Every part of this country is equal.
The intrigues.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection. I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe we got for that reason politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time.
Well, thank you for staying with us, and we go straight to that conversation on South Africa xenophobia, X-raying the narratives, what's the latest report, and are there any updates really on the repatriation of Nigerians, because that was also mentioned heavily in the news last week and some of the updates we have. But we do have Kimiebi Ebiemfa, who is a spokesperson to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, right here with us in the studio. Good morning, it's great to have you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's start from, the last place where we stopped, which is an update so far on what's happening in South Africa, the xenophobic attacks. I mean, you saw in the news the death of 5 Mozambicans, in the last violence that happened. Where are we with Nigerians?
I think, fine, we've had very disturbing protests from South Africa regarding two prominent groups, March for March and Operation Dudula, calling on Africans in South Africa to leave. So far, so good. Wish to put it on record that no Nigerian has been killed as a result of the protest. I was in touch with the leadership of our mission in South Africa even yesterday. No Nigerian business has been vandalized or looted so far. And fine, in terms of molestation, we suffered some molestation of some Nigerians, but in terms of losses, we've registered losses in the sense that if you have a Nigerian business whereby they operate 5 times or 7 times a week, and because of the protests now they are closed down completely or just having skeletal services, then they are incurring economic loss. So in that regard, we've registered some losses. But the mission, our High Commission in Pretoria and the consulate in Johannesburg, they are engaging effectively with the South African authorities. They are in touch with the Nigerian community in South Africa, liaising with them on how best to safeguard their security in the country. And because of not experiencing very tangible actions against the leadership of the protest, as a government, we decided to evacuate our nationals from South Africa. Today, Thursday, they are commencing screening of Nigerians. I think about 1,094 Nigerians have voluntarily registered so far, indicating their interest to return back to the country. So the screening exercise is in consortium with South African
authorities, their own equivalent of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, the South African Immigration Services, the South African Police, will work together with the Nigerian mission and screen the intending Nigerians that are willing to return to the country. So if the screening exercise is completed and we have an idea of how many Nigerians that are willing to come back, then we'll commence evacuation.
All right, so is this the first evacuation exercise since this attack started?
Yes, it will be the first for this year.
Yes.
But don't forget that Nigeria have evacuated our nationals from South Africa. I think in 2008, there was evacuation. In 2015, there was evacuation. In 2019, there was evacuation. But what we've discovered in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is that whenever there is this an election year or close to elections in South Africa, these xenophobic attacks just suddenly become more rampant. Maybe as a means of getting votes, especially the smaller parties, they will make it a point of duty to campaign that it is, in terms of maybe lack of jobs in South Africa, it is the cause of immigrants in the country. That is why they have fewer jobs. And from what we discovered so far too, it seems the government is a bit relaxed, not trying to be that repressive or forcefully clamping down on the protesters just because they want to maybe win votes, as the case may be. So in terms of diplomatic engagement, we've had phone conversations between our president and the South African president. We've had frequent calls between the Minister of Foreign Affairs and our South African counterpart, and also don't forget that we've summoned the South African Acting High Commissioner in Abuja for a meeting where we stated the displeasure of the Nigerian government regarding the molestation of Nigerians in the streets of either Johannesburg, Durban, Cape Town, or Pretoria, or other major cities in South Africa. This is because of the enormous sacrifice that Nigeria made toward the fight against apartheid. It is on record that Nigeria spent over, I think, $60 to $61 billion in the fight against apartheid, either in the form of providing monies for them to fight against the repression that they were experiencing, or in the form of scholarship that we offered to their nationals that schooled here in Nigeria, even from secondary to, I think, university level. At a point in their lives, their leaders like Thabo Mbeki were in this country, Zuma, they were all in this country. We gave them our passports, and we also have what we fondly now called the Mandela tax, whereby 2% of salaries from civil servants in Nigeria were deducted and sent to South Africa just to encourage them to fight against apartheid. Nigeria was not a border country with South Africa, but we are recognized as a frontline state. So if we have sacrificed so much for them, and fine, our foreign policy does not mean that Nigeria will do ABC for you and expect ABC in return. We do it just as the giant of Africa, just because Africa remains the centerpiece of our own foreign policy. So just do what we feel is what we should contribute towards African unity, African development, as the case may be.
But isn't that also, perhaps, plainly speaking, because when you're talking about diplomacy and foreign relations, I'm thinking Nigeria puts Nigeria first, really. And, listening to what you've said, one would think automatically just being able to play that big brother role. This country should also lean into that, leverage on that relationship, and extend an olive branch, in cases like this, but it doesn't seem so. Now, in terms of, I've heard you say you've had phone calls, there have been conversations, president versus president and all that. These people have given an ultimatum of June 30th.
June 30th, yes.
For every African who is not South African illegally or not to leave.
Yes.
The Ghanaian president evacuated their first set of citizens on May 23rd, 300 of them. They're about to do the second batch. They've already reintegrated these people, given socio-psychological intervention, and disaggregated them amongst communities. And this is the first batch. And I'm asking this critically because this is the 4th of June.
Yes.
This ultimatum is on the 30th of June.
Yes.
Do you think that you have enough time
because Nigerians are in their plethora. They're not small in number to go through screening, clearance, and lifting of Nigerians in time enough to meet that ultimatum? That's my first question. Secondly would be, what is the punitive measure for this kind of aggression from South Africa to Nigeria?
I think in terms of the evacuations, yes, Ghana have evacuated, I think over 300 of their nationals, but the evacuation is a process. You submit names of intending nationals that voluntarily want to leave. And again, we have a population, I think, 25 to 30,000 Nigerians living in South Africa. So as far as it's not a war situation, it's difficult for you to say you are evacuating every of your nationals.
Do we have to wait till it's a war situation?
No, I'm just explaining that as far as it's not a war situation. Like what we experienced during the evacuation in Sudan, because it was war, we have to make sure you evacuate as many that turns up from the country.
Possible.
But in the case of South Africa, if it's not a war situation, you prepare to evacuate the vulnerable that are willing to leave. It's voluntary. You can't compel people that, no, Nigerians would, maybe on a lighter note, during the crisis, Iran, US, Iran, and Israel crisis, there were Nigerians that were saying that even if the bombings are targeted on the cities that they are residing in the Gulf countries, that they will prefer to stay there than to return to Nigeria. So we've had instances whereby it's difficult to compel people to live where they are. So it's only those that identify and make themselves available that you are going to evacuate. Now, we've had also commentaries about what was Nigeria doing that Ghana have to evacuate first, even before Nigeria, when we have a more, a larger population than Ghanaians living in South Africa. The issue was that Nigeria was the first to submit the list for evacuation, but as I said earlier, you have to have screening by the South African authorities. Not that because there is a crisis situation, you go with your aircraft and you just put your people in the plane and return to your country. No, they have to pass through screening. One, in the sense that if there are your nationals that are violators of maybe rules and regulations in the country, they might not be necessarily be allowed to leave if they have criminal offenses against them. But if, well, like what we've agreed with the South African authorities is that if there are Nigerians that are violators of visa-related offenses, those offenses will be waived so that they will be allowed to leave. But if, for example, someone had a criminal record and was running away from law enforcement, you can't just hide under evacuation and take those persons out of the country. So that is the situation that we are now. So the South African authority decided to screen Ghana first before Nigeria. So Nigerian screening is starting today. But after Nigeria, I think the next country that they will screen to leave is Ethiopia. So that is why Nigeria have not evacuated before. Then for the second question, I think you asked about what we're supposed to do.
Yes.
Fine. Definitely for country-to-country engagement, you apply reciprocity. We've had instances in this country before whereby I think there was one South Africa deported Nigerians from Johannesburg because they were not having, I think, yellow fever card. I think that was during the Jonathan administration. Then the next flight that arrived, I think, Abuja from Johannesburg, Nigeria to deported all South Africans on board. So sometimes you take those drastic actions at least to settle scores, as the case may be. But we have this mindset that as the giant of Africa, as a country that is keen in promoting African unity, as the case may be, sometimes we toe the path of diplomacy than taking very drastic action. But that does not mean that Nigeria don't have the capacity to take those actions. So we are studying the situation, as I rightly said. The presidents are talking to each other, the foreign ministers are communicating to each other. And again, we just, I think, 3 weeks ago, have the signed document of the early warning mechanism, whereby South African and Nigerian officials will meet quarterly to address pressing issues between us. So we are waiting for activation of the early warning mechanism that will provide a platform whereby, for example, our immigration and South African immigration will have a committee to meet to address issues of what South Africans are calling the undocumented immigrants.
Yes, I'll just even come into that, you know, because a lot of the xenophobic anger is said to be targeted at the undocumented Nigerians living in South Africa, taking up, you know, wages that are meant for South Africans and living conditionalities. I mean, how do the attackers know who is who, and how do they get information, and what is the Nigerian government doing about this undocumented approach?
As far as Nigeria is concerned, since we are not a border country with South Africa, it is very difficult for it to have Nigerians that are undocumented in South Africa. What you have is maybe Nigerians with expired visas. That does not mean that they are not documented when they arrive the country. So you have a Nigerian population whereby they arrive the country maybe with tourist visa, but they have not converted that to a work visa and they are living in that country. That is what you will experience. It's not like other neighboring countries where they have land borders that people can move freely. Nigerians cannot move to South Africa easily in that particular manner. So the Nigerian population there, like the category of Nigerians, we have two categories of Nigerians that are willing to subscribe to the evacuation. One is those that are living in South Africa. They have the right documentation, but they feel that maybe like as a family, the father is not comfortable, student being subjected to molestations, threats that the case may be, and they want to send the wife and children back to Nigeria so that he can continue to see what he can do to make ends meet in South Africa. Then we also have a category of Nigerians that don't have the right documentation to live in the country, and that has to now do with the illegal or irregular migrants in the country, whereby they arrived legally, but now because of continuous stay now, they are now considered as irregular or illegal migrants in the country. So that category, to some, especially those that have been running away from law enforcement every now and then, want to take utilize this opportunity to leave the country. So that is the two categories of Nigerians that we have there. But for the Nigerians that are in the educational sector, doing high-paid jobs, technocrats, as the case may be, because the protests are not everywhere in South Africa. The Eyebrow areas, the protests are far from those areas. So those that are doing, that are in secured area, definitely they've not subscribed or they are not willing to be evacuated. So as we said, as I said earlier, it's only those that want to leave that you can evacuate.
Okay, so the cycle of attacks, I mean the xenophobic attacks, have hardened into a structural pattern rather than an isolated event. So what I mean by this is that, you know, it started with the mass foreigner attacks, which broke out in 2008, where we saw over, I think, about 60 deaths. Now broke into repetitions in 2015, 2018, 2019, and now 2026. So it's been reoccurring. There's been that aggression, and it kept building now to this escalation. And I'm saying this because this ultimatum that was given, has the Nigerian government tried to find out who are those giving this ultimatum? And to what extent are the Nigerian government also working with the South African government to make sure that nothing happens to effectively give power to this ultimatum being brought to light?
We've confronted the South African authorities from when we saw the information about the ultimatum from our own acting high commissioner in Pretoria, meeting with the South African Ministry of International Relations. They all denying that the South African government is not in support of the ultimatum, that they have no backing or giving to the groups that are carrying on the protest. That has been the message from the conversation between the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Nigeria and the South African Minister of International Relations. The same with the conversation between South African President with Nigerian President. But what we are insisting as a government is that even if you are making public statements that you are not in support of the protests, we want to see then you clamping down on the ringleaders of this protest. We have witnessed situations whereby, for example, there will be looting of businesses owned by foreign nationals. You will see South African police in the vicinity, and they are not doing anything to stop. So not just making statements that they are not in support, but then what are you doing to stop the protests has been the concern of the Nigerian government. And that's also is the same situation in most capitals in Africa, whereby African countries are not in support of what it is. I think, funny enough, I saw a video about, I think in the Limpopo area, they killed a youth, I think, 2 or 3 days ago, mistaking him for a foreigner. So these protesters don't even know who is a South African and who is not a South African. They don't know who has the right documentation and who doesn't have the right documentation. And again, most countries have economic cycles of either success or failures. So if you're having downturn in your economic activities, that does not mean that it's foreigners that are behind it. Fine, we have established cases whereby in most developed countries or maybe developing countries, we have scenarios whereby some business owners, because of profit margin that they will get from employing undocumented persons, might focus on cheap labor, in the sense that they know that you don't have the right documentation. So if they're engaging in terms of your salary and wages now, they will definitely underpay you, and you can't also form unions or maybe make very strong demands on the establishment for your welfare, as the case may be. So there might be that dimension. And I'd also witnessed South African energy company, I think,
just as we're looking at, and one of the things, because I asked you this earlier, but I needed to bring it because it's come up a lot on X, conversations on Twitter Space, if I can use that word. They are asking if there is a legally binding memorandum of understanding, an institutional framework between Nigeria and South Africa that looks at immigrant treatment, especially for Nigeria, because they do feel that these frameworks will legitimize actions by Nigeria against South Africa within diplomatic corridors for these kind of things. One, they said the agreement will mandate joint investigation, permanent financial fines, and strict legal sanctions against South Africa officials or security personnel who assist vigilante groups. Is there any framework?
Yes,
that
now we have
that?
a framework. The early warning framework will take care of that. In the sense that in terms of immigration, there will be a committee between the South African immigration officials that will be made up of South African immigration officials and their Nigerian counterpart. So if there are issues that have to do with immigration, those issues will be handled under at that particular purpose. And again, it is mandated that the committee will be meeting quarterly. And even if there are very pressing issues that can't wait for that quarterly meetings, there will be extraordinary meetings whereby they address those issues. So going forward, and again, one of the recommendations from the last Binational Commission meeting, which is held every 3 years between the leadership of the two countries, it was advised that business owners, both in Nigerian business owners in South Africa, should insure their businesses so that in case of issues like that, then they can easily push for compensation, as the case may be.
I think our second guest has finally made it to join us virtually. Papanu Pasha, South African global branding strategist and thought leader. Thank you for joining us this morning.
No, it's my pleasure, and good morning to your viewers.
Thank you so much. All right, so let's get straight into the meat of the matter because you're just joining us for lack of time. Let's begin with the latest reports. Now, 5 Mozambicans killed in a fresh wave of xenophobic violence over the weekend. What can you really tell us about that in terms of what the reality is and then what the stories are out there?
All right. Thank you so much. Let me just clarify that first and foremost, I'm not speaking on behalf of the South African government. I speak as an expert as it comes to international relations as well as a global strategist. I think before I even attempt to respond to your question, and as I was listening to hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, no, thank you so much, because there's background noise. What I wanted to say is that there's really a lot of inaccuracy as it comes to what is happening in South Africa. And I'm very much disappointed with the singular narrative as it comes to the incidences that are taking place, as well as the responses of the South African government. As it relates to the Mozambicans who were killed, what we know is that it was actually 2 Mozambicans, not 5 Mozambicans. But what is also interesting is that when you ask the person, just yesterday, 3 Nigerians were arrested for fraud. So how we phrase these questions, it's very important, because for ordinary South Africans who understand and who follow the media, they know what is happening in the continent. They equally know that South Africa, as it comes to the issue of xenophobia, it is not unique and it is also not frequent. They are also aware what is happening in Ghana, for example, what has happened in Nigeria in the 80s and recently, as it comes to the internal challenges that relates to tribalism, ethnicism, but also xenophobia. So this characterization that seems to isolate South Africa as the only country that is anti-migrants, that is anti-Nigerians, I think it's very misleading. And just to add to that, there's a litany of Nigerian academics, business people, professionals who are working in South Africa. I think it is the responsibility of the Nigerian media, the Nigerian government, to start engaging them so that they also hear their voice. It is important as well that when we have such platforms, we also give an opportunity to the South African government so that it gives you detailed steps of what it is doing, so that we do not have this singular narrative that seeks to paint South Africa as, this child or this stepson of the continent, which does not want Africans.
Isn't it the responsibility?
I think it's a very mischievous, nefarious, and vexatious narrative.
Understood. But isn't it also the responsibility coming from diplomacy and foreign relations, the duty of the South African government to initiate these conversations, have availability of this narrative that shift from blame to solutions, and also interrogate really on ground what the real details are? Because you're talking about different perspectives from different multinationals, whether it is Nigerians or Mozambicans or Ghanaians. These are narratives that will be shared based on the treatment each of these personalities within their communities and ecosystems where they occupy will give to the world. What is the duty of the South African government in terms of providing narrative direction, information that is critical and truthful to the general public? Where does their duty lie?
I think your question is not fair. When the world says that Nigerians are criminals, should we then take that as gospel truth? I know for a fact that our government has done a lot of work to ensure that Africans are protected. But over and above that, South Africa is one of the only countries in the continent where we do not even have legislation that is anti-migrants. To the extent that, if you take our government, the CEO of the South African Defense Force is a Ghanaian. If you look at the private sector, we've got so many Ghanaians, Nigerians, Zimbabweans, Zambians who are working in South Africa. But over and above that, if you take Ghana, for example, and the number of Ghanaians who were expatriated to Ghana, it was less than 400? It was around 300 Ghanaians who were evacuated to Ghana. And of those 300, only 2 of them had documentation. So I think as media practitioners, as media owners, it's, as I said, very important that we are accurate and we are fair, including on how many of these platforms, are engaging on how the Nigerian mission in South Africa is responding to the challenges that are taking place in South Africa. As I said, South Africa is not unique, but our government, from a diplomatic perspective, and the mission, the Nigerian mission, has done a great job to ensure that South Africans and Africans are protected. And I just also want to give this perspective. South Africa is a very violent country. To give this impression that the violence that we are seeing, it's only meted out against Africans, I think it's very ignorant. In South Africa, on a single day, 11 to 16 women are killed. On a single day, Black people commit violence against each other. South Africa is a country where since 1994, Black people do not own nor control the commanding heights of the economy. I had the representative from government talking about jobs. In South Africa, we've got systematic unemployment. If you look at the number of unemployment, the issue of inequality, South Africa is the most unequal country in the world. We just want to speak as if, South Africa, no different to Nigeria, cannot speak about some of the complexities that is facing. So our counterparts from the continent are not assisting us as Pan-Africanists to attempt to resolve the crisis that we are facing in South Africa.
Absolutely. I totally get your point with that. And really, you have made quite insightful reviews from that. And in between the line, I hear all the context of, diplomacy, foreign relationship, improvement, media appropriation, and all of that. But again, you have not yet answered my question. And my question was, what is the role of the South? I know you're not speaking for the South African government, but you as a South African, what is the role of the South African government in presenting the right narrative so that the conversation is shaped equally and people understand that they have access to such information? But I think I will come back to you. I know that it's time for Kakaaki Socials.
May I respond to that? Because I
will come back to you. We want to take a quick break, and then we'll come back to you. We'll take a Kakaaki Socials. We'll come back to you. Just stay with us. All right. So there's let off of that break now. So they want us to just finish our thoughts and then go straight to the conversation on the social media. But just so that we are clear on this, could you please just give me a feedback on that question and then summarize your thoughts before we end the program for this segment?
It can be Googled. The information is there online. The South African government has gone over and above to also condemn the violence and the vigilantism that has been taking place. To give an impression that the South African government or the Nigerian mission is doing nothing, I think, as I said, it's vexatious, it's nefarious, and it does not stick to responsible journalism. Our government has gone, to the extent, by the way, that South Africa is going to elections in November. There's a possibility that the very ruling party, it will be taken, it will lose local elections, primarily because South Africans are also not happy that, or they're not happy at the manner in which our government is responding. So from your side, you want our government to take, a more strong action. South Africans are saying to the government that if you do not respond punitively, we're going to punish you. So what does the government do in this instance where you are sitting there as a journalist who is saying that, no, I don't know which measures you would want, but you are sitting there and politicians have to make decisions which also impact them. But I think we must really applaud the South African government for ensuring that it condemns the violence, for ensuring that it arrests many of these people. But if any person knows the history of South Africa, they would also know that the very people, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, who have been very, very violent, these are the same people who have killed Black people in South Africa. So I think if, people, from an ignorant perspective, you would also think that it's South Africans who are meting out, this violence and this hatred towards, our African brothers and sisters. But these very people who have been on the streets, they are so anti-other tribes within South Africa to the extent that in the 80s and the 90s they killed our people. So
I'm afraid I would have to cut you there because we sort of joined you late and our time is up on this segment. But thank you so much. We hear you loud and clear. It's also good to really also establish that this xenophobic attack did not just start in 2026, right from 2008, 2015, 2016, and now to 2026. And so it's an ongoing issue. It's not just about Nigeria, but also other African countries. I want to say thank you so much also for your insightful views. I'm sorry that we had to take her because she really had a lot to say, but grateful for your insights so far. And we've been speaking to Kimi Ebi Fana, and Panopasha, South African global branding strategist and thought leader. Also here was the spokesperson, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who says the first batch of evacuation is going to commence soon, and that ultimatum of June 30th is being looked into to make sure that no further aggressions are meted out to Nigerians. But we'll take a quick break. We already took her time, and she's there standing in the corner waiting. When will I get my bit? It's time for Kakaaki Social, and Reno Bozage will be up next. Please forgive us for taking your time. We'll be right back to you.
In political discourse, the conversations that matter most are stepping into the spotlight like never before. Political platform, the hard-hitting, no-holds-barred program you have trusted on Ray Power Radio is making a powerful move to television. Tune in to Africa Independent Television, AIT, as political platform debuts on your screen, bringing deeper analysis, sharper debates, and the voices shaping our nation's future right into your screens. From policy and politics breakdowns to real-time discussions with key stakeholders, this is more than a program. It is where opinions are tested, truths are uncovered, and the people's voice is heard. Join seasoned hosts and expert guests as they tackle the issues that define our democracy. No filters, no distractions, just real talk. Political platform now on AIT, 9 to 10 a.m. every weekday. Stay informed, stay engaged, be part of the conversation.
Out you come. With the shortage of brand new aircraft delivery across the world, Emirates decided to go it alone and refurbish over 200 of our existing planes at our own engineering facility. This makes it the largest retrofit program on the planet. For our customers, it means even greater consistency of a world-class product.
Progress no dey happen just like that. It dey come from support when you need am.
Mommy, I got the school fees. You too much.
Na money point oh.
Money point, thank you.
Customer, na transfer abi? Confirm.
Bro, na transfer.
Na money point oh. Oh, na confirm.
Progress na peace of mind when you know say payment go land as Sure Banker. Progress na small wind where they carry person go far.
No worry, yourself go make am. Go Bible.
Victor, even you they use money point?
Of course now, they use money point.
Confirm.
Money point, made for your progress.
Out you come. With the shortage of brand new aircraft delivery across the world, Emirates decided to go it alone and refurbish over 200 of our existing planes at our own engineering facility. This makes it the largest retrofit program on the planet. For our customers, it means even greater consistency of a world-class product.
Hello everyone, this is Kakaaki Social. You welcome. Apologies, our guest took some minutes and we just had to give us some time to. All right, to what's on the space of social media now, we have wife of Nigeria's president, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, that has donated vehicles to some women leaders of the All Progressives Congress, APC. in some of the geopolitical zones, and that's as part of effort to strengthen grassroots mobilization and deepen women's participation in the party's activities ahead of future elections. Well, one of the reasons that you will hear us say is that women deserve something good, and as politicians, it should show that indeed they are politicians. Speaking at the inauguration of Tinubu's torchbearers, that's the party's women mobilization structure, she asked the women to indeed serve as torchbearers of the APC's ideals at the grassroots.
The states where we don't have the presence of APC, but we have members of APC. So to all our women leaders, from the woman leader for Abia State, APC woman leader, APC woman leader for Anambra State, APC woman leader for Bauchi State, APC leader for Osun State, APC leader for Oyo State. Your vehicles will be ready before the end of the week. So I urge all our governors, this is how we want our women to be treated. The vehicles are your personal vehicles. You are not giving it to the party. You have money to do that, which we won't talk about, but register these vehicles in your name. And our beloved state governors, the APC governors, buy your women leaders' vehicle. We are not playing politics like before. We are politicians, and people should see the value on us.
All right, let's see how you're reacting to this generous gesture on X. Omar Kese tagged the Senate president. He says, Senator Godswill Akpabio, look at what your mommy is using the loans for, and you are approving them. Remember, there is life after politics. So we that vote doesn't look or like vehicles, Abi. In another reaction to that, Savior says children are in the bush, cost of living is high, people are complaining of hunger, no electricity, and guess what they are doing? Sharing cars to themselves because they know Nigerians will do nothing. In a sane society, no festivities or anything politics till these kids are out. More thought also for this gesture is Emmanuel. He says, yes, they deserve it, because you can't expect me to work for years for a particular party or organization and have nothing to show for it. Nah. Thank you, ma. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Indeed, amen. Voyager says, if he mistakenly comes back in 2027, Tinubu will pass the cost to already struggling Nigerians. We really need to show this party the door next year. And Omo Ewedu says, mind-blowing. I've never seen a couple so disconnected from the reality Nigerians are facing like bat and rat. That's Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Remi Ahmed Tinubu. The country is boiling, people are struggling, yet they seem to live in another world where politics and power are all that matter. All right, we have concerns that are mounting online over the ongoing continuous voter registration CVR exercise, with some Nigerians alleging difficulties in accessing voter registration services and verifying their records on the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC portal. Now, the issue has sparked protest and widespread debate on social media as some prospective voters claim the system returns data not found when they attempt to check their registration details. They have accused the electoral body of creating obstacles that could disenfranchise eligible voters ahead of 2027 elections.
I'll come here now. We don't day here. Most of us don't come here 6 months. These guys are not there. 9 o'clock. People don't day until all of us come. We reach here now. We don't stay. We don't stay how many hours? Say more than 3 hours. More than 3 hours. At the end of the night, people say their server is not working. Yes. You know that, now give us specific day. Which then I want to come back on do. They say they never know. They want to tell me say, I call other government, say other local governments, say that the same thing. At Etiosa, you must tell us the reason why the server not they work.
You must tell us when we will not be registered for voters card.
And we came there yesterday and we could not be able to vote to do our PVC. We cannot come there tomorrow and our PVC, we cannot do our PVC. We are in Nigeria and we are fighting for our rights. I don't know why people are denying us for our own PVC.
All right, let's see how you're reacting to this. Yemi Daniels confirmed it and he says, this seems real low. I just checked now and the screenshot below is what I found. I voted in 2023 with this same PVC. I hope Amupiton knows what he is doing, attaching what he found right there, that voter not found, when he imputed his details right there. In another reaction, Jesse Tove says, Tinubu has already claimed that he scored 10,999,162 at the APC primaries. All that voted for him are registered voters with INEC. This, according to Tinubu, is different from his other supporters who are not on the APC database. This is the first step at rigging. Nelly says, I experienced this in their portal too, and I've been voting with that card since 2011. I even used it this last AMAC election only to apply for a damaged card because data is fading out and not readable again, only to be told voter not found, and is in shock. That common man says, see, I got the same thing and I went to INEC office to rectify it. With their time frame, I advise you all to go to their office and correct it, please, before it's too late, with their plenty stories and excuses. If that has not been rectified, this user is suggesting that you go to their office. And then in alignment to this, we have an activist based in Bayelsa State, Livinus Nwosu of the Rattle movement, that has embarked on a grassroots sensitization campaign urging rural residents not to sell their vote in the 2027 general elections. Also engaged residents with videos depicting the impact of insecurity and terrorist attacks, arguing that poor electoral choices and vote buying have contributed to Nigeria's governance and security challenges.
They will burn you a human being where they cut the head. This is how they are killing human beings. Look at the buying. Look at this one. They will burn you inside your house while you are asleep. Look at the ones who say they burn alive. Look at what these bandits are doing. Look at human beings. This is what is happening. This one inside your motor they shoot them.
All right, that's what he's been up to, and according to him, about 200 people have been reached. He's taxed them on civic responsibility, even providing transport fare to some of them to go register for their PVC. Now we'll cross over to X. Arthur Samadina says, when the election campaign begins, opposition parties should compile videos of kidnapping victims and display them on giant screens at campaign rallies so Nigerians can see the insecurity they may continue to face if APC wins a second term. The opposition parties must be brutal. For Lord, he says, yes, for sure, 100%, because that's what APC did in 2014 to get into power. So let's use the same tactics to remove them. More thought will come from Food Med. It says reaching the grassroots is key. There should be thousands of volunteers doing this peacefully all across the regions. This is a kind of cause that people should give to. Support 1K, 2K, 20K. That is how it should be done, not raising money for laptop thieves and medical fraud. Trilogy says they may start going against his life. He should be very careful based on antecedent. That user says that grassroots mobilizers should be careful. Sadly, gunmen have abducted the younger sister of former Minister of Power and APC governorship aspirant in Oyo State this year, Adebayo Adelabu, along with her 12-year-old twin sons in Ibadan. The victims were reportedly kidnapped on Wednesday morning at about 7:30 a.m. while she was taking the children to school. The Adelabu family confirmed the incident and said security agencies have commenced effort to rescue the victims and apprehend the abductors. The latest abduction comes amid heightened concerns over insecurity in Oyo State following the recent kidnapping of teachers and students in Orire local government area of the state. All right, let's see how you're reacting to this development coming from the Adelabus. Ade Mika says the same insecurity that ordinary Nigerians have been complaining about for years has now reached a top politician's family. Maybe now those in government will finally treat it with the urgency it deserves instead of calling it isolated cases. Nigeria deserves better. Tell Another Bro says this is heartbreaking but not surprising. Under APC, even the elites and their families are not safe anymore. Kidnapping a woman and her 12-year-old twins on their way to school, Nigeria don't turn war zone. Enough is enough. Hashtag end insecurity now. For Uncle Jonah, he says the sad truth is that they are likely to be found before the school children who were abducted by terrorists 3 weeks ago. That is a painful reality we live with in this country. This is for those who keep defending these incompetent leaders. When it happens to ordinary people, they appear unconcerned, but once it affects them or those close to them, they suddenly swing into action. Be careful what you defend today. It may come back to haunt you tomorrow. For Hardgun, it says, not wishing anybody bad, and nobody deserves being kidnapped. But these kidnapped or bandits kidnappers should focus on politicians and leave the innocent poor people alone. Make the politicians feel the pain. Ayodele Balogun responding to Hardgun, he says, now waiting day my mind, but now waiting day my mind be that, but I dey fear to talk am. They don't help am talk am for that. And then a suspected bandit has been arrested by residents in Oshogbo in Osun State and is currently under investigation by the police. The suspect was reportedly apprehended around the Okefia area of the state capital while dressed in Nigerian Army trousers and in a Motekun uniform concealed beneath other clothing. Confirming the incident, the Osun State Police Command said the suspect has been transferred to the State Criminal Investigation Department for further investigation. Police spokesperson Abiodun Ojelabi said authorities are also working to ascertain the suspect's mental and physical condition as part of ongoing efforts to determine the circumstances surrounding the case. And that's the case right there. All right, talking some politics at this time, we'll cross over to the Senate, where we have the Senate on Wednesday that rejected a proposal by Senator Adams Oshomole that is seeking a comprehensive probe of military spending, despite growing concerns over the worsening security situation across the country. During deliberations on insecurity, Oshomole questioned whether the huge resources allocated to the defense sector were producing meaningful results, arguing that Senate resolutions would continue to lose relevance without effective implementation and accountability. In a dramatic exchange, the former Edo State governor also told the presiding officer, Deputy Senate President Barau Jibrin, that the Senate leadership was part of the problem for failing to follow up on resolutions and demand report from relevant authorities. All right, in reaction to this, we have Nehru, who says this was how he sounded like the best thing after Agege Bread and won the heart of Edo people. They voted him as governor, and he forgot about all the noise he made when he was a labor union chairman. My best bet why he's trying to create an impression that he cares is because he wants to become the Senate president. Well, for time, we have to run. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'll see you again tomorrow.
more nutritious meals, more veggies, but we want it tasty and easy too. Knorr Cubes, that's the secret. Made with real ingredients like chicken, parsley, and garlic. And enriched with iron, so your meals are better for you and more delicious too. That's the cocoa. Let's give it some accolades. Change your world by changing what's on your plate.
Out you come. With the shortage of brand new aircraft delivery across the world, Emirates decided to go it alone and refurbish over 200 of our existing planes at our own engineering facility. This makes it the largest retrofit program on the planet. For our customers, it means even greater consistency of a world-class product.
Get ready for a bold new chapter in political discourse. The conversations that matter most are stepping into the spotlight like never before. Political platform, the hard-hitting, no-holds-barred program you have trusted on Raypower Radio is making a powerful move to television. Tune in to Africa Independent Television, AIT, as political platform debuts on your screen, bringing deeper analysis, sharper debates, and the voices shaping our nation's future right into your screens. From policy and politics breakdowns to real-time discussions with key stakeholders, this is more than a program. It is where opinions are tested, truths are uncovered, and the people's voice is heard. Join seasoned hosts and expert guests as they tackle the issues that define our democracy. No filters, no distractions, just real talk. Political platform now on AIT, 9 to 10 a.m. every weekday. Stay informed, stay engaged, be part of the conversation.
Well, thank you so much, Rena, for that and bringing us up to speed. Now time for us to bring you our second talking point. And we're talking about the insecurity situation in Nigeria. Of course, a lot of people say, and it is really indeed, when you look at the front pages of newspaper, clearly getting out of hand, and outrage in form of protests, and of course, continued abduction of teachers and children have left a lot of people with a lot of perhaps some things to say that are not so kind, but truly truthful in the case of this situation. We have Honorable Ifeanyi Okafor, member of the House of Representatives, here with us to discuss this and bring us perhaps some insights, especially as the National Assembly has just only recently resumed plenary, and there are different perspectives on what must be done, foots on ground, and even a call by the Senate to audit the military accounts. But let's first of all start from where it begins. Good morning. It's great to have you.
Good morning.
All right, so I'm sure you're not new to this conversation because every day you are encountering different headline stories on insecurity. This morning, 8 people were abducted from Zamfara State from a university. Of course, we see the protests happening in Oyo State and across board. The children that were kidnapped in Borno State are still not yet, been found. So the list is endless. But there's no doubt about that. But again, what I want to ask is the fact that with this spiraling out of control of the insecurity in Nigeria, do you really think that the Nigerian government understands what it's dealing with? And do you have a sense of control whether they really do know what to do as intervention at this time of place?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians, and thank you for having me. My name is Honorable Engineer Dominic Ifeanyi Okafor, representing the good people of Agota Federal Constituency. Well, to say the least, I think Nigerians know, the government, knows what to do. And that is why the present Federal Republic of Nigeria, Asiwaju, Senator Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, has in different fora called for the decentralization of the police and constitutional amendment. And the debate is everywhere. I'm sure that in no distant time, the National Assembly will be receiving the executive bill to that effect. I think they're on top of it.
Okay, so on top of it would mean that we are seeing perhaps some intervention, first in saving the children and the teachers that were kidnapped. On top of it would mean that we have some sort of, outcomes or investigative inroads for the children that have been kidnapped in Borno State. On top of it, would also mean that, you know, Nigerians are seeing day in, day out that schools are safer for children to attend and that teachers can teach in peace. And when that is not done, I mean, if you go through the social media, I'm sure that you may be able to filter what's true from what's not. But the general sensibility, the general feel is the fact that these attacks are becoming rampant, much more than they used to be. We saw churches in 2024, 2022. Now we're seeing schools plus churches. And people are saying very soon it will be in the front post of our homes and our doors. And with all of this narrative, you still think Mr. President is on top of it?
Yeah, I think so. I strongly believe. A few days ago, you saw the strong team that he sent to your state. And of course, it's not everything that the federal government is doing that will be out there. You know, security is not things that you discuss in the open. And for the determination, for the seriousness, a few days, we just resumed on Tuesday, and most of the matters of public urgent importance are on this insecurity. So, and all the relevant security agencies are put on alert. And I believe that they're seriously working to control the situation.
All right. It also appears as if that the extremists or terrorists or bandits or all of them above are seemingly having an upper hand in their methodology of attacks and the way that the kidnappings are going on. Now, is this a result of lack of proper intel on the part of the security operatives? Or is it that the terrorists have increased both sophistication and methods of how they attack, or a combination of both?
Well, that's why I said that, I mean, we have to look at the solution, even though it might not be a short-term solution.
Absolutely.
You see, the decentralization of the police force is, of course, will go a long way. Because, I mean, the state governors are answering chief security officers, but when they don't have direct control on the security agencies, I mean, it makes their jobs very, very difficult. And when you consider the number of police that we have in the country, less than 400,000, policing over 200 million Nigerians, you can see that the task is, I mean, is very difficult. And if we look at, of course, you know that the foundation, you know, the legal foundation of this centralized police force lies on Section 214, subsection 1 of Nigerian Constitution 1999, as amended, which states that there shall be a Nigerian police force and that no other police force shall be established for the Federation or any part thereof. So it's inherent, and it now becomes very imperative that we accelerate that process of ensuring that we have state police, and which will go a long way to solve this insecurity. Of course, it's also, apart from solving insecurity, it's also going to reduce unemployment rates, because a lot of young men and women who are out there will be willing to join police force. If you go overseas, you see how police are smartly dressed that you even feel that you are one of them. Quite unlike, you know, the local vigilantes and all that, which are not well funded, which many of them will feel that they won't have a good career path if they join them. So I think the federal government is on top of its game. And of course, you know, the committee that was set by IGP recently submitted their report to the Senate committee, and the ongoing constitutional review, we'll soon vote on it. So I think...
So what I hear you say is that the state policing agenda is still on track.
Sure.
And there is a commensurate effort to see that it's passed.
Exactly. Despite that, some people are feeling, some subnationals or state governors may use it against their perceived political enemy. But then, what is the lesser evil? Is it not better that, you know, we have our states properly policed and people sleep with both eyes closed? There's investment can come in, than being afraid that some governors may use it, may abuse it, and then see what is happening. So I think that is the solution that everybody can Thomas supports to ensure that it comes to fruition.
Okay, on Tuesday, there was a call for the immediate implementation of course, the state police and other security reforms following the motion of public importance that was moved by Honorable Okala,
yes.
Now, a lot of people feel that should have been done a long time ago and worry about the pace. could it be perhaps speaking to these politics of whether this would be used for personal, interventions by governors or for the people? And how do you manage that? Because again, you cannot rule out the dissenting voices in this conversation. How do you bring them on board?
To be very frank, Aloha Kala, of course, he's from Oyo State. And I mean, going by that 7 pupils and 7 teachers that were abducted in Orile local government, of course, it's expected that he will speak out. This is not the time. Like I did say, the president has spoken in different fora. And a lot of people, Afenifere, Northern Governors Forum, a lot of stakeholders have actually added their voice, strong voice, to the establishment of the police. So the conversation has been there a long time. And of course, these things take time. But I know that the moment the National Assembly receives the executive bill, I'm sure that the speed that it will be given, the attention should be more than the one that was given to the tax bill. And I'm sure that before this 10th National Assembly winds up, it will be implemented.
Okay, so now let's look at the devil in the detail. I hear you say that the lesser evil, is more than the consequence that will be borne if we don't have it. How do you also manage that? Because whether you like it or not, there are intrigues around state policing that also may offer even more aggression if not managed.
Thank you very much. Of course, before I've called your attention to the section of the Constitution, Section 214, subsection 1, that established, the centralized police force. Before the state police will be established, there has to be a proper constitutional amendment. And of course, that's why the National Assembly is there. They are going to come up with a very effective framework to ensure that, the abuse of this, state police will be minimized. Of course, it doesn't mean that it's going to be minimized 100%. But when the state governors know that they're going to answer, they have questions to answer, why they are, in office, or when they're out of office, when the veil of immunity must have been, removed from them. I think many of them will ensure that they don't abuse it. It is better that the states are properly policed than, shifting the goal because of possible abuse by the subnationals. I think that's, that outweighs, having the states properly policed outweighs that disadvantage.
All right, and talking about disadvantage, again, one would look at the current police architecture in Nigeria, from welfare to institutional framework. Do you not think that a total reform, perhaps, to look at it from the structuring of the Nigerian police and not just to look at the state police at itself? Because, again, it is not about numbers. It is about having those numbers and equipping them properly. It's also about making sure that they have what it takes to be on ground, to be able to act effectively. You cannot give what you don't have. And that's exactly the case for some people for the Nigerian police. So how are you also going to look at reviewing the welfare architecture, the budgets planning for the Nigerian police, even as we look at implementations towards calling for state police?
Well, for me, I think all those are being taken care of, and proper funding and all that. But I still believe strongly that when there's state police, there'll be competition. I use Anambra State as an example where I come from. Anambra State has a local security outfit called Agune Chamber. I tell you honestly, they're so effective that assuming the police, state police comes on board, the government will be able to inject enough funding. There'll be proper training, the welfare will be increased and all that. Of course, I still use other developed climes like United States of America as an example, where you have the federal police, and then, of course, all the states have their own state police. I mean, people will be very happy. People will, in fact, it will even be an employer of labor that a lot of young men and women with a good career path who want to join.
All right, we hope that is as good as it sounds. I mean, we wish that that will be done properly with all of the reforms that are intended to actually prosper and also ignite, important definition towards the police architecture, whether at the state or at the national, because as we speak, a police constable earns between 45,000 naira to 86, police corporal 44,000 naira to 96,000 naira, and a sergeant between 48,000 naira to 98,000 naira. And it
is begging for reforms for welfare. But thank you so much, Honorable Okafor. It's great to have you on the show. And we'll be getting updates on whether this will come to see the light or just stop at the table of the plenary. But we hope for the best.
Thank you for having me.
As always.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
And that's, of course, the interview part of this conversation. And now, talking about conversation, State of Human Rights is up next.
Hello and welcome to State of Human Rights on Kakaaki, the African Voice. I am Omoyo Ogbaki. Today we are pausing through numbers that should make every citizen and policyholder pause. On Monday, May 18, 2026, the National Human Rights Commission released its data dashboard for the month of April. The figures reveal a staggering sharp spike in public grievances across the country. In April 2026 alone, the NHRC received a total of 266,787 human rights complaints across the state offices in Nigeria. That is marginal but deeply troubling increase of 10,655 cases compared to what was recorded just the month before in March. From worsening security crisis and institutional abuse of authority to economic hardships and a severe contraction of our civic space, the dashboard reflects the very raw daily realities of the Nigerian people. Opening the session at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja, the Executive Secretary of the NHRC, Dr. Tony Ojukwu, stressed that tracking these violations isn't just about the statistics. It is a critical accountability mechanism designed to turn policy into active protection. He also addressed the rising threat to fundamental freedoms by signing a historical national advisory.
Today's event reflects two important dimensions of the mandate of the National Human Rights Commission. Firstly is our responsibility to monitor and report on the state of human rights in the country. And doing this while also promoting and enabling civic space grounding in accountability, participation, and respect of fundamental freedoms. Since the introduction of the Human Rights Situation Dashboard in 2024, the Commission has continued to strengthen transparent and evidence-based human rights monitoring in Nigeria. The dashboard remains the important accountability tool for identifying trends, emerging risks, and areas requiring urgent intervention. Beyond the complaints formally received by the Commission, the Human Rights Observatory continues to monitor broader patterns of violations across the country. In April 2026, the human rights situation remained shaped by insecurity, communal tensions, economic hardships, and concerns around civic freedoms. Distinguished participants, today's signing of the advisory on protecting civic space and human rights is both timely and significant. Across the world, civic space continues to face increasing pressure with growing concerns relating to restrictions on freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, association, media freedom, and civic participation. The advisory, developed through broad stakeholders consultation, provides practical guidance for protecting freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, association, media freedom, and civic participation in line with constitutional and international human rights standards. As we continue to strengthen the human rights situation dashboard and observatory, we remain committed to strengthening accountability, expanding access to justice, deepening civic engagement, and advancing evidence-based human rights interventions through sustained collaboration with our stakeholders.
That was Dr. Ojukwu laying out the baseline. But where exactly are these violations occurring with the highest frequency? When you break down the data geographically, the North Central Zone bears the highest burden, accounting for a massive 42% of the entire country's complaint, with 111,889 cases documented in that region alone. If we look at the top 10 states with the highest rate of reported violations, the Federal Capital Territory leads the pack with over 35,000 complaints, closely followed by Benue with 30,000, Borno at 25,000, and Kaduna at 20,000. Now, the Commission explains that the FCT's I ranking is partly structural, a merger of data from the national headquarters and the Abuja Municipal Office. However, the numbers coming out of Benue, Borno, and Kaduna directly points to the violent crisis of displacement, communal clashes, and banditry plaguing those territories. To give us the deeper thematic analysis of these specific crimes, including a terrifying surge in killings and abductions, is the Senior Human Rights Advisor to the NHRC, Hilary Ogbonna.
Now let us look at the thematic complaints. In terms of our thematic areas, freedom from discrimination continues to lead in terms of number of complaints we receive bordering on freedom from discrimination. That is 95,720. This is followed by law enforcement and human dignity, which accounts for 88,914 of our complaints. Then there is also issues of access to justice. And for the first time, we see sexual and gender-based violence also increasing in terms of the graph. Now let us look at population-related issues. And the first is women's rights. Gender-based discrimination recorded the highest with 752, which is followed by abandonment of women by their spouses, which is 436. Now we also see sexual and reproductive rights issues also featuring as one of the highest number of complaints we have received. Now, in terms of sexual and gender-based violence and our complaints, 1,810 complaints on domestic violence, followed by 61 complaints on sexual violence and 11 on rape alone in April 2026. Now, let's look at children. In terms of child abandonment, we recorded 179, which is by far the most human rights violation regarding children. However, it's important to note that even though it's the highest human rights violation on children for the month of April, it is by far one of the lowest we have recorded in recent times. Child abandonment has dropped. Now, we had 423 killings, 42 killings of these were our armed forces and law enforcement. Every month and month, we keep emphasizing the fact that no country should allow its armed forces and law enforcement to be killed in this way. It really shows a sign of deeper insecurity issue, a sign of our failure to secure those who secure the state is a monumental thing. Now you can also see all other sections that we've always shown you. Kidnapping 127, and of course our sexual and gender-based violence, as well as children's rights and kidnappings.
What the April 2026 dashboard proves is that human rights violations thrive when there is silence and a lack of access to enforcement. The gap between knowing your rights and being able to safely access justice is what breaks public trust in our institutions. Rebuilding that trust means utilizing channels that are working. The National Human Rights Commission's investigation teams are listening. And that proves that they will issue summons to any agency, no matter how highly placed, to get answers for everyday citizens. So, if your fundamental rights have been trampled upon, if you are a victim of gender-based violence, or if you witness child rights abuses in your community, you don't have to look away. You can reach the NHRC immediately and completely free by dialing their toll-free number on 6472. Let me repeat that. That is 6472. Your voice is the primary weapon against impunity. That brings us to the end of today's segment of State of Human Rights on Kakaaki, the African Voice. Until next time, I am Omoyo Ogbaki.
All right, thank you for staying with us. And now it's time for us to definitely say thank you to you for staying with us all through the show today. And we welcome your responses and interventions. Thank you for joining us as our in-house reviewer. But just to mention that there's a refuse mountain along Nigerian Army Estate, Kurutujiko, Cairo. They said it's smelling badly and causing people to fall ill. So please, FCT Minister, send watchdogs on the environment to that area. My name is Adora Sidney Jack. See you again next week. Goodbye.